All right. So it's kind of funny. Whenever I meet people, one of the first questions people ask me is, "What do you bench?" Uh, I haven't done bench in almost a decade now. Bench press has been named one of the best exercises for chest and blah blah blah. Blah. It's not. It does horrible things to your shoulders, first of all. But the other thing is that it's not a very good chest exercise. When you look at any exercise, the whole point of the exercise is get the joint as open as possible. So you open up the muscle as much as you can, then you bring it together as close as you can. So the largest range of motion you can possibly get out of that muscle group, and then you resist it. So with biceps, the curl, where you go all the way down and then you come all the way back up, is one of the best exercises you can do for bicep. The problem with bench is that when you're out here and you come down, when you come up, let me try not to knock the top here. When you come up, you're here. Well, your pecs want your elbows to come to here. So if you're here, you're missing 30, 40% of the actual range of motion of the pec. So if you're trying to build your pecs, the very best exercise for them is flies, especially, when you're way apart and then you come all the way together. That's the best motion for the actual muscle of the pec. So if you're trying to build your pecs, the last thing you want to do is take an exercise that only gets you 40, 50% of the range of motion of the muscle. Because if you're trying to grow the muscle, you want to grow the whole muscle. And growing 100% of a muscle is obviously going to get bigger size faster than growing 50% of the muscle. So, that's one of the biggest problems we have with a lot of the exercises people are doing is they're doing exercises just to be in the gym working out, which is fine. Like, I'm not arguing that you should be in the gym just working out. Like, if you want to spend your time doing bench and doing incline bench and doing decline bench and stuff like that, that's awesome. You're in the gym, you're working out, you are doing fantastic things for your health. I'm not knocking that at all. Keep it up. But if you're trying to grow your pecs, do the exercise that activates and utilizes the entire muscle. So, if you want to do pec deck is a much better exercise at most gyms than bench press is. Now, if you're going to do cable flies are my favorite. Cable flies are what I do the most of. If you want to build your chest and you just did a 8, 10, 12 set of flies, that'd be fantastic. If you did like a high fly, mid fly, low fly, that'd be a fantastic way of growing and developing the pec. If you're gonna do a bench press just so you can do bench press and you want a higher bench press, work your triceps more. There's a lot more tricep in bench than there is pec, a lot more, because you're still going to straighten your arms out, and the tricep is what straightens your arm out. So if you want a higher bench, if that's your goal, like I want to build my bench up, build your triceps up. The stronger your triceps are, the higher your bench is going to get. You're going to grow your bench a lot faster with tricep work than you're going to with working your pecs. Now, if you want to grow your pecs up so they look pretty, flies are the way to go. So, and the other problem we get into is that, and I've talked about this a lot, when you're doing bench press, there's a ton of guys who've been working out for a long time. If you go to the gym and you find the 40, 50, 60-year-old guys who've been lifting since they were in their teenage years, lots of them are going to have shoulder issues. Lots of them have had shoulder scopes because bench press is an unnatural range of motion for the shoulder because your hands are locked together and they can't move around. So lots and lots of shoulder damage, lots and lots and lots of issues there because your arms actually have to move and the bone actually rotates and things like that. So, it's not allowing for proper motion. Now, if you wanted to still do a press motion, dumbbells are fantastic for this because you're going to get all that motion. You can bring them together. You can get a lot more motion in the pec. You can get that full extension on the elbows. So if you want a higher bench press, because that's your thing, which is fine. I don't really care if you're like, well, what the fuck, I can bench press 400 pounds. That's awesome. By the way, if you can bench press over 300 pounds, you're in a very, 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 very small percentage of people. But if that's your thing, do more dumbbell press, do more dumbbell bench. It'll save your shoulders. Like jump onto the bar and kind of warm up and get there, but do the dumbbells. If you'll do dumbbell press, it'll really, really help your shoulders. I would also highly recommend that you find a friend or a lifting partner that can lift the dumbbells to you. Because one of the things that's the most irritating is if you're lugging 100, 110 pound dumbbells around to do press with, it's a pain in the ass. So have somebody hand them to you. It'll be a whole lot safer on your back and on your body to just have somebody hand those to you. But the biggest one you want to do for your chest is going to be flies. So, if you do more flies, you'll get more function out of it. There's a lot of exercises that are kind of like this. One of the other big ones that is always irritating, and we're starting to see more of this in the gyms. There's no reason, if you're trying to train your legs, you want to do the squatting motion, great. Talk to your gym, find out, get those. There's a lot of belts. There's even belts you can buy for squat that takes the pressure off your spine. There's no reason to put 200, 300, 400 pounds on your spine when you're trying to work your legs. Wrap it around your hips. Use those those squat belts and do that. Not the belt that you wear when you lift, but like the ones that have chains on them or hooks on them, so they can hook into the weight, or they hook into the weight system, so you can do squats that way. That's going to be much, much, much better for your entire spine than trying to put a whole bunch of weight on top of your spine and lift it that way. Horrible idea. But a lot of the times when we're doing these lifts, we haven't walked through what's the most important thing when lifting. Get the range of motion of that muscle or that joint as far open as we can, and then as far together as possible. The bigger the range of motion, the larger the stretch. And there's research on this. The bigger the stretch, the bigger the growth of the muscle tissue. The thing about it is that if you have a bigger stretch, you're using more of the muscle tissue. The more muscle tissue you engage in the exercise, the more muscle tissue you can damage, thus the more muscle tissue can grow. This shouldn't be controversial, because if you're like, okay, where does the pec tie in, right? So pec's here, it ties into the arm here. So if you're only doing this motion, you're not getting a lot of the pec, but you're going all the way open and you're coming all the way to center. You're going to get a giant amount more pec work involved. The more pec work we get involved, the more function we get. I see the same thing with go back to legs with women who are trying to grow their butt, and they do Olympic style squats. So they come down to parallel and they come back up. Go all the way down and come all the way back up. Hit your butt to your heels, that whole ass to grass thing. The bigger the range of motion, the bigger muscle function you can get, the more you can grow. And there's a lot of hamstring involved in that too. The cool thing is that if you do those full ranges, you're going to shape the muscle differently, and it's going to look more the way you want it to look. So when you guys are doing some of these lifts, run through and think about the range of motion you're actually getting and how much stress is put under that. Now, we'll talk about this some other day, but the other thing is that when and this is more of a leg thing, we'll go into this more later. The more you're doing this, get your knees over your toes, get your weight back a little bit. Start with body weight, then work up, but you need to access the more range of motion of the ankle and the hip and the knee. If you'll exercise and train in a larger range function, knees over toes, off to the side, things like that, the more you train in that awkward positions, the stronger you're going to be in those awkward positions, the safer and healthier your hips, knees, and ankles are going to be. Now, if you're an Olympic lifter, everything what I just said is different. If you're an Olympic lifter and that is your sport, that's different. You're training, go down to parallel, come back up so that you can get your Olympic lift in. But if you're not an Olympic lifter, all this stuff needs to be looked at differently. I see this with football players all the time. They'll come in and they'll be able to do, I can squat 600 pounds. Yeah, but you're so wobbly, you can push you over real easily because your ankles are weak or because your core function is weak. So the more that we start recognizing that, one, the biggest way that you're going to grow muscle is the largest opening and then the largest closing that's resisted. And then how do you balance all that stuff? So cables and dumbbells, you've got to work on this motion and all the way up. So you get all this stabilization function, you get all this movement, you get all this neuro recovery piece. So you're going to get a lot more functional growth out of it than if you're just going to do bench. So save your shoulders, grow your pecs by actually looking at where they insert, where the origin insertion is. Get those two pieces as far apart as you can anatomically, and then bring them back together. That's the way you lift. There's a whole lot of people who are doing 19 different exercises every time they will go work out, and they can't figure out why they're not growing. Largest range of motion possible to hit that, resist it, and then that's how you'll grow. If you guys have any questions, hit us in the comments or drop us a question at questions@chalmerswellness.com. Have a fabulous day. Thanks for your time.